Dobrý deň, tak vás znovu vítame na našej dnešnej konferencii.
Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you all again. I would like to welcome you all again in this panel. This panel deals with the preparation of municipalities on how to work with foreigners. We would like to remind you, don't be afraid. You may ask any question, anytime, even though you didn't have time to ask your questions during the previous panel. We would like to present a material as an outcome of this panel. My name is Nina Galanska. I work for the Milan Šimečka Foundation. I'm the moderator for this panel. On the left side, you may recognize Elena Galova-Kruglerova from the previous panel. And then on my right side is Dashka Vranka-Kneškova from Marginal. And they will both present their results from their research dealing with the social work and dealing with the preparation of municipalities on how to work with foreigners from the intercultural point of view. That means what kind of intercultural capacities and skills and municipality worker and employee should have. I would like to give the floor first to Dasha Vrana Knoškova. Thank you very much, Nina. Hello, everyone. I would like to ask the technical staff to start my presentation. There it goes. So briefly, I would like to share our experience during the capacity project with you. The Foundation Marginal cooperated with the Human Rights League during this project, and we organized trainings and educational uh, workshops for municipalities workers. That's okay. That's all right now. So, together with the Human Rights League, we organized legal trainings, social trainings for municipality representatives and employees. During several years, we organized 8 trainings for all the municipalities involved and that participated in this project. We had a lot of participants. There was a huge number of participants. These were representatives of regional offices, district offices, circuit offices, and also pedagogical staff was involved in these trainings, and providers of social services also took part in this kind of trainings. We had the opportunity to repeat such trainings, and it was a huge success. It was a good practice because each participant had the possibility to participate, to choose the topic which he or she was interested in relation to his or her area of expertise. These trainings were organized according to the needs of and according to the interests of the participants. So, given the range of those trainings, I will not have enough time to touch upon each of them. But what I would like to highlight is the topics that are relevant to us. Since that we have a good cooperation with the Human Rights League, we have a team of lawyers. We During our trainings we wanted to clarify all the terms and principles that are important to us: citizen, the term of the citizen of the Slovak Republic, inhabitant, resident, etc., because anyone can understand something different when we are talking about uh, these terms. And as regards the rights and obligations of foreigners, we need to make it clear to them. We need to use right concepts and right terms, because and any foreigner has to have the right to receive clarified information as to the as to the type of residence he or she would like to be granted. When we were preparing this kind of trainings, what was very important to us was to cover the topic of inhabitants, which was already discussed by my previous speakers. We have the law, the act on the organization of municipality. All these laws use the term of inhabitants. We also have the term of a permanent resident or a temporary resident or a temporary resident. Not all the foreigners are permanent residents in Slovakia, but all are citizens or inhabitants. What's important here is that people need to get to know that people need to know that there are foreigners living on their territory in their country. These can be foreigners with a temporary or permanent residence, and the legislation that covers these kind of topics is so broad and so diverse that in general, citizens of the Slovak Republic are not always covered by each piece of legislation because municipalities have their own competence and responsibilities, and they cannot deny giving service to any kind of citizen or foreigner. Here we can see a brief summary of selected rights and obligations of foreigners. In this field, we can see different rights and obligations. You can see the term of a foreigner, whether it is a man or a woman. Uh, they have to face different kind of situations in their life, employment, health, social security, etc. So there is a quite wide range of social security and social support. All these kind of life situations come within the competence of municipalities and have to be covered by them. So foreigners have to face these kind of situations in their life, and during our trainings, we wanted to focus our attention to the facts and to issues which are many times covered by the mass media, by the media. We can talk about the facts, and we can talk about the myth, what's not real, because people maybe think that foreigners are stealing jobs, are stealing our jobs, but that's not true. What are the conditions for them to come and to reside in Slovakia, so that we should prevent that any kind of national or either a national from coming from the country, a foreign national, uh, do not see himself or herself in a situation, in a difficult situation. So we need to bear in mind what type of residence has been granted to a foreigner. We need to know what are our responsibilities and what are our tasks as representatives of municipalities. We need to know what we can give them, what we can afford them, uh, either contribution in kind or financial contribution, etc. So now I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Miss Elena Galova Kringlerová. Thank you very much, Dasha, for the presentation of the topic of foreigners. We will talk about this today and also tomorrow. And now I would like to give the floor to Elena Galova Kriglerova from the Center for the Research of Ethnicity and Culture, who will talk about intercultural skills and competencies, which are also very important to prepare municipalities employees on how to work with foreigners. Thank you very much, Nina. We have we were asked to talk only for 10 minutes, so I would try to make my story shorter. Uh, as regards the survey of this topic, in addition to all this work which we did and which was mentioned by Dasha, all these life situations that foreigners have to face in their on a daily basis when they come from abroad, when they come from a different country, they can find themselves in a specific situation. So we decided to organize intercultural trainings for municipalities representatives and municipalities employees on how to perceive this topic, not only from the not only from the social and legal point of view, but from a general point of view. Now I would like to share my presentation with you. So we conducted or we organized meetings and workshops for employees and officials from town halls, and we also we were also We were also familiar with the necessity to include pedagogical staff and social workers in this kind of trainings and workshops. So together with the Milan Mišečka, Milan Šimečka Foundation, we also included different kind of bodies in this trainings. So next slide, please. We focused on what's the basic knowledge when municipalities employees work with foreigners. What's important here when we enter in any kind of relationship, when we uh, when we establish a liaison with any kind of person, our behavior is being affected by this triangle. You can see it, person, situation, and culture. It is often used in our work. It is a very effective tool when we are talking about the integration of foreigners, about the involvement of foreigners. So what really affects us when we communicate with others, we have our own personality. That's what defines us. What defines us? Either we are outspoken person or we are more shy persons. So everyone has its own characteristics, but we are also shaped by our background. So uh, we have to be submitted to a series of rules because we have to behave according to different rules, whether they are dictated by our family over society, and we always find ourselves in a different kind of situation. We are always affected by our background. We can face a difficult life situation. We can get a divorce. We can go through a pandemic. So in this kind of situation, also a foreigner can find himself or herself coming from another country. So this is very quite a range of full range of different life situations. People who came to Slovakia and came to Slovakia because they found a partner, etc.
All of these three aspects are important to be considered when it comes to our contact with foreigners, because it happens quite often then the specific behavior of theirs which must not is not always corresponding to our culture. uh, we often do not realize that there might be some situation or some situation that people find themselves in, which can be behaved. So this is the intercultural training, the basis for our intercultural training. With our trainees, we talk about specific situations which the foreigners might face. The previous panel, we also discussed that the foreigners are very often treated as general public. So there are some rules, some conditions, and when as we're trying to provide equal assistance and equal things, then everything is equal also for the foreigners. But they have language barrier, they have specific needs, which didn't have enough time to learn the Slovak language, and also the language barrier in schools or at institutional offices, and this is also a complication for the mutual communication. And in this, the the culture side on the triangle, there is some environment where the people where they lived when they were children, and maybe they find something else important in their lives, what we can consider differently.
Treba vedieť veľmi dobre
This
ošetrovať.
also could create some tension which needs to be eliminated when we want to provide social services or other services as employees of municipalities. The third is the social situation, which Dasha already mentioned. There are very different there's different residence statuses, the legislation, and they find themselves in different situations. And the last slide, the intercultural trainings we do are based on the mutual learning with our participants. They cannot include their own expectations in their ideas. This is often to be seen in Slovakia, that yes, we know what the best way is, and this could be very complicated when it comes to foreigners, and the empathy is also crucial. Others have to be involved as well. Third party, someone from a different country or someone outside of the municipality can be very harmful in the integration process. It is also important to apply so-called cultural relativism, which means what is right for me doesn't have to be automatically right for someone else. And this triangle I discussed before deals with the sensitivity towards other cultures. So our trainings take 2 days. So we talk about everything really in detail. So did I make okay? So it was very intensive, so many information in so a few minutes, and except for the trainings, we were also trying to find a way how to educate the municipality workers in a sustainable way. So what if the project will be finished? What will be left behind? And at this point, we realized that the best way will be to create a interactive working educational tool providing information for the preparation of the employees. And Miška Dojčinovičová from Human Rights League and Vanda Hlavačková from CISEM agency will introduce this educational tool for municipalities. As you mentioned, Nina, at the beginning of the project, we try to create a tool for integration, which was intended for the municipality employees. So we wanted to make it more accessible to other people, not only to the municipality employees. We wanted it to make it accessible to the most people possible from schools or from municipalities which are working with foreigners in various parts of their lives, and also from the legislators, local legislators. So because the training also needs to provide information on the current state of affairs when it comes to foreigners and their rights. So we were contemplating the form of providing the information in the future, and the idea was to create an e-learning tool which would allow everyone to go through a course or to go through a lesson on foreigners living abroad, starting with the information on how many foreigners are living here, what type of residence there is, what are their rights and duties. For instance, in the social area, education, healthcare, to information involved in the intercultural training mentioned by Elena, as such as specifics of work with foreigners, integration of foreigners, culture interpretation, etc. After completing this lesson and meetings with the municipality employees, we realized that a better way would be to create a website which would constitute an e-learning method, but rather a clear and transparent website where the visitors can find information in the easiest way possible. So directors, for instance, or the principals are interested in information on for children from the families of foreigners in schools. Social workers are interested in rights and duties of foreigners in this area. Of course, there is no limitation. People can find any information they want, and we are happy when they look at it from the broader context. but considering or taking into account the capacity and the situation, current situation, such a clear structure was one of our main criteria. So this was the request to create such a website. Videos, graphics were included, and these make it more humane. Such a vague legal language is replaced, or is there are other elements of more humane language, which is also part of the website. And Vanda Hlavachkova will now tell you more about the website together with the CSAM agency. Do you have the floor? Thank you, Mishka. At the beginning, I would like to say that we could be part of, or we could of this web design of this website, and our team spent some time abroad, and some municipalities had to take care of us, and we know how important such a topic is when we were living abroad. So I hope that together with colleagues from other organizations, we did this, because I know it was really a hard work, because the difficulty of this subject matter and the legal text and some kind of translation into more humane or more humane form was really hard work. But now we can take a look at the website. I will share my screen with you so you can see the web.
No, vidíme ho. Vidíme.
Okay, so can you see it?
Takže, ako Miška hovorila, cieľom je pomôcť
The
cudzím
goal was to help the municipality employees and other people at the municipality who are in contact with foreigners, to help them and to provide better living conditions for them. But we also wanted for all the people who visit this website to be as user-friendly as possible. And we want also to people to come back and to visit the website once again. So when you open the website and you're looking for a specific piece of information, let's say a driver's license, how foreigners can apply to obtain the driver's license. So you just type in the words driver's license, and you have the information right away. When you need to go more in detail, at the beginning of the website, there are here these tabs with the topics, types of residents, categories of foreigners, citizenship, etc. When you scroll down, here are some useful links which could be useful for every visitor of this website, from the terminology or the definitions to technical texts such as strategic integration policy, etc. When you return to homepage, here are some additional information, maybe some soft skills information for all the people working.
Miška, keď hovorím niečo zle, kľudne ma oprav, keď niečo
Working with foreigners.
Je tu napríklad veľmi dôležitá téma kultúry.
Very important topic, cultural shock.
Prípadne špecifika sociálnej práce s cudzími.
Or the specifics of social work with foreigners, which were also discussed earlier.
A to je vlastne všetko.
And that's it. So this is how we wanted to make the website to be as user-friendly as possible. So let's try to focus on the keywords. So social security, that's important topic. That's why it is divided into more categories. So when you take a look at social security as a keyword, it is divided into more keywords. So it is not an e-learning. So, but using keywords and some topics, you can get the information you are interested in. Here you have a print button. So this is also helpful for everyone who wants to get more information about the topic, but wants to print the materials. And the structure of the website is supported by all types of laptops, whether or smartphones, tablets. So it cannot happen that your device won't support our website, and you do not need any specific computer skills. As you can see, it's not just on a long text, but all important information are highlighted, or some videos are added. We will play one video right away, and then we have some live situations which might occur in the life of or which may occur when we work with foreigners, and very comprehensive, which is a big thank you to the ladies who cooperated with us on this. Additional information which you can read if you want to find out more. So can I play the video now? I think you mentioned all the main features of the website, and we also invite all of you to go through the website, but I think now you can play the video. Foreigners are part of our cities as all other people, and they shouldn't be forgotten. They work here. They are our neighbors who are involved in volunteer activities. They study here, they sport, and they also are part of the municipality. They have the right to be elected, and they have a right to vote. So municipalities should communicate in a way that the foreigners have the feeling they are treated as equal, and cultural diversity should be recognized in the municipalities, and the benefits should be also recognized. Then the foreigners can feel like home in our municipalities, and we will all benefit from this exchange.
Vanda, Miška, ďakujeme veľmi pekne za túto
Thank
prezentáciu.
you very much, Vanda, Mishka, for the outcome of our work. You could have seen before. If you want to find out more about communication with the public on foreigners and migration, then tomorrow we will have a panel with Eva focused on communication with the public, and the next panel will be providing information to foreigners. So I believe this was a nice teaser for the panels which will be held tomorrow. So thank you for the presentation. We have about 1 hour for our discussion, so I would like to welcome all of our guests, namely Lenka Šafrankova-Pavličková from Municipality of Brno. Hi, Lenka. We are happy to have you. And we believe that Lenka is an expert for intercultural work, and she's one of the mentors at the municipality of Brno. She also is the co-author of publications. So hello, Lenka. Another guest of ours is Luisa Urbantova, uh, who works at the Department of Slovak Language and Communication at the Philosophical Faculty of the Matej Bel University. Thank you very much thank you for having me. And we have two more male guests, Jan Heinrich from the Meta organization, specialized in education of social workers and teachers and other educational workers on topics of children of foreigners.
Je Benjamin Bossert, ktorý je z...
And the last one is Benjamin Bossart from the Department of Languages of the Philosophical Faculty of the Communist University in Bratislava. These universities are quite complicated. Thank you, Benjamin, as quite an expert on community interpreting. Thank you very much for having me here, for inviting me. Yeah, this is a department dealing with 5 languages. Thank you very much for the invitation to this conference. I would like to remind you, you can send us your questions through the Slido application. We will go through them. And so we will have 45 minutes for our questions, and we will give you 15 minutes to ask your questions to our speakers. So now we are going to deal with the preparation of municipalities on how to work with foreigners. The very basic question at the beginning. So we had training for municipality representatives. What do you think from your experience? How should we involve people in the process on how to work with foreigners? Who has to deal or who will have to deal with foreigners during in his work? So Lenka, the floor is yours. We'll begin with you. There is a problem with the sound. So, like it was already said, we meet a lot of stakeholders on local level. At the local level, we have to include inhabitants. But if we imagine the healthcare, education, or public affairs and neighborhood, these topics are very important to our foreigners. So ideally, we should have an audience of 1,000 people right now, right? Watching us. That would be the ideal situation, right? At local level, the integration of foreigners should be perceived as a dialogue between a local inhabitant and a foreign inhabitant. So we have to promote such a dialogue, and then we will have the topic of integration of foreigners being dealt with by our stakeholders. Luisa, you would like to jump in and say something? Thank you. Yeah, I think this topic should be covered by universities and higher superior institution, higher education facilities. But I think all these schools should deal with this kind of topic because we have to deal with work within a community, and this is the topic that has to be covered by our offices and our departments. And we know that Slovak University, more and more people from abroad try to sign up for Slovak universities every year. They try to enroll themselves. So that's why we need to set up processes so that those people can be enrolled. And what's very important and what's amazing is that we do not train or educate only people who are already prepared for everything, but we would like to prepare people who are flexible, who can be translators and interpreters, but who can also work in another field of expertise. What's very important for us is that they show sympathy, that they show critical thinking, that they do not use stereotypical type of thinking, so that they can see people from abroad as individuals, as unique individuals, unique personalities. So, and they can use their knowledge to help them. Thank you very much. Jan, you work also as a social worker. Do you think that social workers and people who work for municipalities, do they need to have special competencies, special tasks and responsibilities when working with foreigners? Of course, we all should have enough responsibilities and tasks in order to join an intercultural dialogue. Is there any specific feature related to social workers when working with foreigners? Thank you very much for your question. Yes, of course, I agree with you. I think that it has to do, in my opinion, with the knowledge of cultural differences, of cultural necessities of different groups of people. These do not have to be stereotypes necessarily, because we do not have to say that such people behave in such a way and other people behave in another way, but we they need to know, we need to have enough knowledge and use it and apply it to anyone. And we have to apply it to those who come from different backgrounds, different cultures. So on the general level, I think we need to have this. We need to have a certain level, certain awareness of values, and we need to perceive the importance of multilingualism, and we need to bear in mind that we have here people who do not speak our language, who not speak the Czech language, in our case, for instance, and who can who can experience a difficult psychological situation, have a psychological trauma when coming to our country. So, and they need to feel integrated. Perhaps they do not have protective network in our country, do not have any relationships with anyone. They do not have any ties or bonds within their family when coming to our countries, because they come from different backgrounds and they come to a different world, to a different country, which is totally different to their culture, to their traditions. And that's why it's a big challenge for them. It can be a stressful situation. They face the language barrier and many other troubles and many other issues. That's why it is important for social workers and any kind of workers dealing with foreigners to become aware of this issue. We have a specialized course for social workers,
na oblast vzdělávání.
And we focus on the area of education. We also collaborate with the Municipality of Prague, like my colleague Jan Janošek has already mentioned before. And these courses we organize are designed for municipalities employees and also for social workers and also for other groups of workers who deal with this kind of issue. It may be other kind of workers as well.
Lenka, you worked with, in the field of intercultural communication with municipality employees. Is this mindset of ours? Is there some kind of development of our mindset in a historical context? Okay, so now. Well, you were talking about intercultural competence. So if I put it in simple terms, we are in the we are trying to focus on the dialogue, on what's in between, and not on the foreigner, or nor not on the citizen, because we have to be somewhere in the middle. So this intercultural approach, which was very present in the 1990s, which have some migration background, it was difficult. It was important to focus on the foreigner. Why this has shifted is also experience, the negative experience, and the foreigners also didn't want their differences to be highlighted, because there are many identities they are all developing and the environment in Germany, for instance, or in other Western countries, the approach of diversity management was developed, which was created in American corporations, which says that when the relationship between the equal employees of the company
K růstu inovací, k růstu vlastně jako rozvoje i vlastně k
is
mnohem větší vlastně
equally
rezistenci toho systému. Takže vlastně pokud se s diverzitou správně pracuje, tak má jenom přínosy. Pokud se s ní nepracuje správně, nese spoustu rizik. To je vlastně to.
It can also lead to personal development. If you work with it incorrectly, there are many risks.
Jedným z nástrojov
Here, Benjamin, one of the tools of intercultural words is community interpretation. We have two interpreters with us interpreting into English or Slovak. What's the difference between normal interpretation and community interpretation? And what's your perception of, what's your treatment at university? So here, this conference is translated into a single language. So the interpreters work in one way. So now they are interpreting into English at conferences, and when there is an English-speaking speaker, then it's other way around. But the conference interpreters work one way, but for community interpreting is what's typical for community interpretation is consecutive interpretation. So the techniques of note taking are crucial, and the discussion is how to define the community interpretation in a as narrow definition as possible, because in some countries, for instance, there is also judicial interpretation, and judicial translation is also involved in the community court interpretation. Or in Belgium, for instance, this is not only community interpretation, but they call the community interpretation a public service interpreting, or social interpretation as well, because the goal of this interpretation is to make the way of social security education easier. This is what I also mentioned, because when it came to
taký veľmi jednoduchý príklad toho komunitného tlmočenia, čo je napríklad v meste,
was also important. One example is
ktorý tlmočí rodičia
an interpreter
z migračnej generácie, ktorá ešte len arbajtrov do Belgia,
which came to Belgium many years ago. So he has a migration background.
Dostali vzdelávanie v holandčine, takže na to rodičovské združenie.
And he interprets, so the school could contact the social interpreter, who will interpret the meeting of parents of the pupils, because you don't want the children to interpret for the parents. First, the child will not understand everything, and secondly, they are talking about the child itself. So this is just an example from education. There are some other examples in medicine, in senior homes, in police work, or other practical or situation in practice. So now I was talking about Belgium, but this interpretation is provided in other countries as well. So that would be it in a nutshell. Lenka, Jan, maybe could follow up on this.
Určitě já souhlasím
Sure, I agree with
říkal a vlastně
with what you said and the interpretation
to je věc, se kterou se setkáváme velmi často a zrovna třeba v tom školním prostředí.
by children is something we really often are. What happens really often in schools, but in official environment, this could be very problematic because there is too much pressure on the children, and they are role of interpreters. And this problem could be present also when the interpreter is a family member or a member of the community or someone who could have a conflict of interest. So he could also be biased, for instance, or
v té práci. Také hraje roli to, že ty komunity jsou malé, to znamená, že pokud ten člověk není vázaný nějakým kodexem, může být obrovský problém i z hlediska těch migrantů samotných.
This could also cause problems for the foreigners and for the parents as well, that they do not say everything in front of the interpreter, and they are not straight to the officer. So the role of an independent professional is really crucial, and it's essential.
Lenka, vy ste chceli k tomu určite niečo dodať?
Lenka, you wanted to add something, right? Thank you very much. I wanted to add something to what was said by my colleague, and I think this is a good example between session interpreting and community interpreting, because I have a colleague who is an expert for a Vietnamese community. I will use the term of a community interpreter and a social worker. I know it's not the same, but sometimes it's interchangeable. But I have a colleague, she's Czech. We have also foreign workers. She works as a court interpreter, and she has been working with us for 4 years. And her main purpose, why she works with us, why she started working as a community interpreter after having worked as a court interpreter, because she used to interpret from Czech into Vietnamese, etc. But she could not get involved actively in the interpreting. She always translated everything very correctly to a Vietnamese national, but Vietnamese national, for instance, or whom she was working with, did not get all the basic terms, so that there is a language barrier. That's why it wasn't taken into consideration, and that's why she prefers now more the community interpreting than the code interpreting. At our university, we try to react on how the interpreter can interfere during an interpretation. In Belgium, for instance, the social interpreter can add some information to clarify some things, but also the other side has to know it, the client has to know it. So to a certain extent it is allowed, but I have to highlight this is a very different kind of situation, and it's different according to each country, according to each experience. I suppose that in the Czech Republic you have different experience when compared to Belgium and other Western countries. And I may follow up that I have to say that at our university, professional and accessible community interpreting, we had a project and we analyzed the current state of affairs of the community interpreting in 6 countries: Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Poland. These were our partners in this project. Then we used examples of good practice as regards the model of community interpreting and education. Case study, we included the case study of Spain, Austria, and Belgium. Austria is also a neighboring country to Slovakia, and it showed us how different may be the approaches of education, the approaches of training of interpreters, and what are the budget possibilities, what are the possibilities of the national budgets to finance this kind of activity. Lenka, you have the role of intercultural mediators or workers in Brno. What can you tell us? What was the prerequisite in order to establish in order to create these kind of roles? How can you tell us more about this kind of an intercultural mediator? I think I will need half an hour to answer your question, but okay, I will try to answer your question. Intercultural mediator or intercultural worker was established in the Czech Republic through innovation project, and during 2 years we used a pilot project, and I think this was a kind of an innovative project. And within the context of our dialogue, I have to say that the project included the need for increasing the preparedness and involvement of social workers and this kind of workers. Municipalities employees have to be motivated. They need to perceive, they need to see this problem as something important. They need to absorb different or limited amount of information. We also conducted different projects regarding diversity. And then in 2000 and 2001, we created groups, and after 20 years, they still continue with training of municipality employees after 20 years. And still it goes on because it's in the long run that something can change in this field. And now we need to cover the issues of foreigners, and we need to improve the work of municipality employees. That's why we adopted this approach. If you look at it from a point of view of diversity, we hired different several linguistic and cultural mediators.
It's not about upskilling the Czech employees, but it needs to be rooted in the institution. There are some limitations, of course, in Slovakia and Czech Republic. We are young countries in terms of migration, so we do not have the second generation of foreigners who would be educated in our schools. So if you employ a foreigner who is not educated in Slovakia, he has problem with language skills, and that causes limitations for his talent. So we could work with this, and this can be improved. The language and cultural barrier is only one of the barriers in the contact. It's the inability to understand all the communities, because there are different ways of communication. This is not only about passive and active interpretation, but there is on-site work, the ability to understand, to explain the Czech system, or to establish a communication channel, to provide the information and to work with the information, because it's different between the natives and the foreigners. So it's hard to trust is also very important. And another point is that the intercultural worker is and other we are also contacted by others, so they have to be able to define the problem and to find the causes, to think in a systemic way. So these people have or need methodical leadership. So it could be a Czech national who understands the system, but the ability to provide consultation to foreigners is also important, and this must be also provided to nationals. So you have to know how to pay for the waste, disposal or management, and
která vyžaduje taky spoustu kompetencí, protože
other practical things. Then there is the networking, because the intercultural worker needs to understand the problem and provide the appropriate services. So he needs to know the environment, he needs to know who is in charge of what agenda. And recently what we see is how our colleagues are improving the competences. The communities are more open to them. Their services are more understandable for the communities.
jak vlastně ten interkulturní pracovník funguje, co všechno.
So it's also a huge barrier that some communities do not understand this openness of ours. So that makes us also some technical consultants for organizations, institutions in the municipalities who support foreigners, because they the intercultural work allows us to participate when the measures are being adopted or created. So this includes the need of foreigners into the process, and also healthcare providers, the officers who have also specific needs, but they are not escalated to the manager. So I hope that was understandable for you. It was great, thank you. So it was a nice cross-cutting of what we need to know to work with foreigners, and this is not only about specific workers, but it needs to be combined in more functions or intercultural work. So Benjamin, you wanted to say something? Yes, I would like to add just very shortly that I understand this very well, that the people that in Vienna, they are educating the employees, or they've been educating them for 20 years, because of course the migration waves are changing and employees are changing as well. So, but what we need to realize, there are huge regional differences, and of course a foreigner, asylum, and citizen are three different people. The documents I need from the registry office, for instance, I should register my son to at the registry also, so I can only ask for the document in Netherlands language. But if a Ukrainian worker works in Trnava or in another country, he or she doesn't have the option to have such a document, or this could be also good for translation to the birth certificates. And we also I would also like to add that you did a really great job, that with this website you created a form of brain what the municipality employee could know, and what information the foreigners need. And for us interpreters or at universities, we would need to have the information on what needs, or what needs to be translated, what documents should be translated, or or interpret it verbally. So here we should find a compromise, because some websites could be translated into English, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this is understandable for a citizen from an African country where the official language was French and where the English skills were lower. So these are also some examples when it comes to translation and interpretation. Uh, Lenka? So this is the moment when it starts to be interesting, because we could have the information the foreigners need the most, the information from the labor office or specific documents, but it starts to be interesting when in the moment when we say we could do this, when you invite the foreigners, because that is what we are dealing with in Brno. I think this can be demonstrated on Russian or Ukrainian language. I expect that the translation will be, or the document will be understandable for us. But when it comes to Vietnamese, this is more different, because the cultural background or the social and situational background as well. Many Vietnamese citizens are coming to Czech Republic, where people coming from the countryside, and they do not have necessary skills to understand specific or longer text. So this is what we started to do. We took this information from the office, and this applies specifically to Vietnamese nationals, and we record instructional videos for Vietnamese nationals, and these. So you are aware of the skills of them, so you cannot just take one thing and translate it into all the languages and think it will work, because there are many specific barriers which have the crucial role. So we also did a course for foreigners in Brno, so some life situations, how to deal with them. But we've encountered the problem that Vietnamese nationals do not understand this, and Ukrainian people different things. So we had to put some explanations into the materials as a reaction to what, or as a response to what the foreigners know and do not know.
Lebo ja napríklad už
I understand it quite clearly, because if I want to vaccinate my child within the basic vaccination program, do you have a different vaccination package when compared with Belgium? I'm used in Belgium to such a vaccine, and I do not wait here. I do not expect the same thing here. But I have I'm the fortunate one, because I speak Slovak. But imagine a case of a foreigner who would expect something different. There could be communication problems. We imagine somebody from Arab community or other communities, Dutch community. So these education levels are quite different. Yeah. So we should go one step ahead, and we can think about it like this. We can go to see a social therapist with our child, so we need to know what kind of information we need to provide to them. Thank you very much. We switch to a very interesting topic, because counselors and pedagogical staff and etc., educational staff, and these are also employees of our municipalities, so we cannot avoid them when we are talking about the preparedness of municipality employees. What is your experience? What's really working what's really successful when working with children of foreigners? I wanted to add something more. There is a lack of knowledge by primary school professionals, because primary schools or the pedagogical staff is not prepared to work with foreigners, to work with the community of foreigners, and then they are trying to catch uh, the gap of knowledge by undergoing several courses or different kind of trainings. What's really working in general terms at schools is that when a school adopts an active approach and tries to ensure the primary language preparation, for instance, the language preparation of the Czech language as a second language. It can be used in classroom and not as an extracurricular activity, which is the traditional model, because children are really tired after school, etc. So if it's not conducted within the schedule during the day, during the school day, it can be really tiring for children afterwards. What really works is the acceptance of a multilingualism and the acceptance of
doma s těmi dětmi ty úkoly, protože prostě jim nerozumějí, ale to, že rozvíjejí...
We have to bear in mind that many times it happens that foreigners as parents do not help their children to do their homeworks because they do not understand the language. It's quite complicated. So we need if the child, a specific child coming from a foreigner's family, understands and learns another language, in this case for instance Czech, and it can help its family in general. And then we can see it also in classroom. Those children can show to their classmates that, okay, I'm here and I can speak your language. And they can teach others about their culture, their traditions, some song. That means adhere to our own traditions and respect it. I think this is the way to go around it. And these are the ways that really work. And what's also important is to shelter or to provide assistance and to treat every child like any other individual. So the language preparation is important. If somebody learns the Czech language, even though there is a language barrier, we have to work with such pupils, such students in different subjects, and they should have an adapted schedule, adapted curricula, so that it is really adapted to their needs, and the children can learn new vocabulary, new terms, and it should be focused on the improvement of the development of the specific child. So they have a certain level and they can achieve different kind of language level, the level of the language, so that they can cope with it. They do not get depressed. They do not get depressed when they fail a subject, when they fail exam, when they fail to understand or to learn the Czech national anthem, etc. Luisa, I'm really happy because you are asking for the floor. So where we are talking about the preparation and training at schools, you can also react. And the next question from my side will be, how can we reach the connection between municipalities and universities when we are talking on how to work with foreigners, on how to prepare municipalities employees on how to work with foreigners, because our societies are more and more diverse, and how can it work in practice? Jan was an inspiration to me because our institutions are quite conservative, are very traditional. They have established curricula and established study programs, and it's very difficult to change it. What we can change are optional subjects because I work for an institution that works with the preparation of children. But such children, if they face difficulties with the language or other subject, they can improve their level of knowledge at secondary schools. So we can prepare our future teachers who study at our university on how to teach the Slovak language as a foreign language to foreigners. And I think this is very important in this sense. I think we should offer more courses of the Slovak language as a foreign language at different levels, not only at schools. It shouldn't be only at the secondary school, at the primary school, but after that, we could offer specialized courses. Also, municipalities can organize specialized courses for foreigners. And like it was said, the cultural diversification is really broad. It's a mental space because we meet people with different mental spaces. When we have only few people with a few mental spaces, but if we manage to have more people that we can teach, then we will divide such people into small groups, and we can specialize into we can get specialized in different topics. And I think there should be a transformation of universities. Or there is the preparation on new study plans ongoing right now, and I think it should be included. As regards the department I work with, where I work, I think we can create and we can prepare optional subjects which can work for the whole university, even though if we do not create new accreditation study plans, study programs according to the standards, to the new standards in place, we can create optional subjects where we can include the Slovak language as a foreign language. And now, as regards the cooperation, for me personally, for us, we had this capacity workshop. That means networking. We are talking about. I met so many people I didn't know before. I met a student, an undergraduate student I worked with later on my subject. When I was preparing for this conference, I was thinking, what should I do? And the first thing is the discussion. It has to do with meeting people. We need to disseminate information and so that many people can reach it. Many people can understand it. And I think networking is also about it. This is the issue I can focus on. And I think the setting of the cooperation has to do with the communication. So that's why it is important that we communicate. And within our brainstorming and communication, we can establish our cooperation. I think the communication is the most important thing.
Pripomenúť všetkých, čo nás
Thank you very
sledujú.
much. I would like to tell all the participants to raise questions via Slido. The questions are not problems from us, but we would be happy to answer your questions. So this is not just a one-way communication. Luisa, thank you very much for introducing the cooperation, and I'm really happy that the cooperation is being born right now. Lenka, you wanted to mention something. I'm not sure if you're still interested. I just wanted with relation or to the intercultural workers, how an example how raising competence can look like. So about 3 years we've been working with a primary school and kindergarten in Brno borough with high concentration of Vietnamese nationals, and there's the highest number of Vietnamese children. So we provided a consultation and interpretation in contact with parents. The communication between school and foreign parents is a hot topic in Brno. And our colleague also prepared a few trainings for the teachers regarding pronunciation of Vietnamese names, or the characteristics, the behavior of Vietnamese people, and why the children learn some things very hardly. So the different nature of the language and of the people, because one professor, a specialist on Vietnamese language, the Czech language and Vietnamese language are totally different. So the mental world of theirs is really different, and
ono se vlastně ukazuje, že pokud ty
it was
nejen pedagogové, ale i třeba ti úředníci si můžou sáhnout na něco, co
well,
můžou
not the teachers, but also the officers. They could find something what they could use in practice, so they could just take it and put it into practice because they are really interested. So what I wanted to say is the last step of cooperation with the school was that they had we helped them find an intercultural employer to provide methodical support, but the school has it has own intercultural consultant. So they also gather the information, they try the other way of operation, and we also help them to solve many conflicts. So this is just an example how the interpreters could help in the field of education. Thank you. We were talking about good practices a lot. Do you have an example how intercultural help or work failed, or it was poorly said? Do you have some real experience which we could learn from? It's a question for all. Benjamin?
No, tak napríklad pri tom komunitnom tlmočení
When the community interpretation, when it comes to community interpretation, the role of interpreter, the position is really important. So a practical example that the infrastructure needs to be provided as well. There needs to be a proper table where the interpreter can sit between the two parties, and this it happens often that the room is not fitted for such a seating, so the communication also fails. So we do not have the triangle where the social worker or the municipality officer can directly talk to the foreigner, because this is where the community interpreter is only the intermediary and enables the communication. So this is just an easy example where this could fail. Another thing we sometimes have to deal with is that the profession as intercultural worker is rather new, and intergalactic workers, we also call ourselves like this, because many people do not know what, do not understand what we do. Now I'm talking also about social workers who are not specialized in this area of work. It takes us some time before we understand that we need to explain and be patient. What does it mean to work with a intercultural worker? And because the different expectations from the social worker or from the officer
nejenom, že to může blokovat vyřešení té věci, ale
might prevent solving of the issue, but they also do not understand the potential the social worker can give him or her. To be more clear, we were we were dealing with domestic violence, and it was a service working in the field of domestic violence, but not with foreigners. The problem which our worker was considered only an interpreter was that the client told one thing to the social worker and the second thing and another thing to the interpreter, and this service just told that it is the problem of the interpreter, it is the fault of an interpreter because they just didn't interpret properly. So they were also trying to convince the woman that she will get the children, but she was from Syria, and what's typical in Syria is that the girls are entrusted into the custody of a husband. So there are many misunderstandings where it could be misunderstood just, but it was the mother who didn't understand that she could be entrusted with the custody of the children, and these are the things which make the case more complicated. And if we would respect the intercultural worker and treat him or consider him all, not only an interpreter. So Mr. Heinrich can certainly tell us that the code of conduct needs to be followed, and the social worker has to also be aware of what ethical principles and standards the mediator or the interpreter should follow. So the code of conduct has already been established, and I think the lack of competence by the official is the problem, because they do not understand the scope of the differences when these two environments are confronted. But it also happens that don't tell this and don't tell this and that, but the interpreter is obliged to tell everything, and so according to the code of conduct. And I think this is also a mistake, that we underestimated the awareness of practical
různých
use
organizací a institucí
of special organizations and institutions regarding their activities. So the education is not just about informing them. Luisa, I think Jan wanted to say something. Okay, I also wanted to give you an example when this doesn't work. It doesn't work when we focus on quantity rather on quality, because if we have a subject cultural integration of a foreign student, there was a student enlisted which she had to come with a project, and at the beginning there were more people, but but in the course of time there were less and less, fewer people, and there was only one person left at the end. But what I realized is that I don't think this is a problem, because this develops in time, just like the subject we are having right now. New subjects such as integration of foreigners and the implementation, and this subjects were also cannot be implemented as we wanted due to the pandemic, but people are enlisting. But we have to understand that this will come in a continuous manner. So this doesn't happen at a time that all the people will be will apply. So sometimes I'm telling myself that we have to set the goals, and then we'll be calmer.
Áno, nevzdávať sa hneď na začiatku, keď náhodou nám to nevychádza podľa
Yes,
toho,
we do not have to give up at the beginning when we do not achieve what we want to achieve, right? So that's right. I agree with you. Jan, you would like to add something more as regards the topic of the community interpreting? As regards the code of professional conduct, I think we had different projects established and focused on the community interpreting when we wanted to train interpreters, community interpreters, together with the Institute of Interpreting Studies and Translation Studies. So we had a really good professional cooperation. And within the framework of this project, we created a code of professional conduct, and it has to do with the vision we had as regards the profession of community interpreting. In practice, we can see that it was prevailing. What was prevailing was the cultural knowledge of social workers, and I think there's a slight difference because the basic principles of the code of professional conduct and professional ethics can be transferred or can be passed on cultural and community workers. This is a book which is called Community Interpreters in the field of social services, and I think we would be more than happy if we would be very happy if more organizations could take us as an inspiration. Thank you very much for your inspiration. I think this is a good communication, Benjamin. I would like to follow up as regards the community interpreting. There is a question from the Slido application. Somebody's asking, what's the level of the community interpreting in Slovakia? What do you think should we do in order to improve this kind of service? It's a very broad question, but of course we have analyzed the situation in Slovakia as regards the community interpreting, and I can say very shortly that in Slovakia, as regards code interpreting, code translations, this is quite a developed area because we have a good piece of legislation in this field. That means that foreigners are entitled to be represented when they go to a trial, when they go to courts. So this is kind of community interpreting established in our laws. Then we have another type of situation dealing with community interpreting when we need more financial resources, or the representatives of municipalities have to be more open and need to gain more knowledge about this situation in Slovakia in this field. It's very difficult to summarize it, but be prepared a publication. My colleague adjunct professor Tužinska and adjunct professor Števkova dealt with it. My colleague Ms. Tužinska dealt with the topic of interpreting for asylum seekers, and we dealt with a more broader picture of the community interpreting. So what I see here is to create more possibilities of cooperation. And Ms. Urbancova has already said it, that from our side, from our university, we could have a meeting, or this would be an additional piece of information. I can imagine then, as regards the accreditation of study programs, we count with, or we have already established the practical exercise or practice for future interpreters and translators. And I can imagine that within this project, or within the capacity project, there was a survey already performed on when foreigners are situated or when they live. I think we could now find more information about the needs for translations or interpretation, or what kind of what's the type of documents mostly translated, or what's the area that needs to be interpreted more. And in these fields, I think that some of our students, some of the future interpreters and translators can join or can try to gain more practical knowledge and work as interpreters for a labor office. For instance, in Trnava, I can imagine somebody who can translate or interpret into Serbian, or a different kind of situation would be in Bratislava and Banská Bystrica, of course. And I would like to say as well that all these bigger cities, all these bigger regional cities have universities that offer interpretation study and translation study programs, so we can cooperate with them. And I think that's where I see the potential of it, the potential of improving things. And we can try something in common with municipalities. Thank you very much, Benjamin. I think we do not have much more time for the discussion. We do not have time for three tips of good pieces of advice, but from Lenka and Jan, you can learn more from their publication about good practices from abroad. I would like to thank to Lenka Šafrankova Pavličkova from Brno. Thank you for participating. Thank you for giving us your tips on how you work at your office. Thank you, Janka. Then to Jan Heinrich from the non-governmental organization META, Association Opportunities of Young Migrants, who told us about communication and language mediators and workers and the possibilities of training. Thank you to Benjamin Bassard, the assistant professor from the Department of Languages of the Philosophical Faculty of the Comenius University in Bratislava, and to the Vice Dean Luisa Urbancová from the Department of Slovak Language and Communication of the Philosophical Faculty of the Matej Bel University in Banská Bystrica. I wish you all the luck with your subjects and the accreditation. So next time we can meet in Banská Bystrica at your university. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon. Have a nice day. Thank you very much. Bye.